Horticulture is a simple flip and write game that can be played by a vast range of people. You can play it solo, and that's how I played it so far. You can play it with a group of friends, up to 6 without any adjustments, 7 and up with a little adjustment. And actually, I'm teaching a class for 120 students in the fall, a class about game design. I think I'll be able to play this game with all 120 students of my class at the same time. If you're curious, I can tell you how. So each player will have a sheet such as this one, double-sided with 2 different versions. This one's a little more challenging, and as long as all players are using the same side, it's fine. Then there are a couple of steps that you need to do to set up the game. For example, you will draw a garden gnome anywhere on your board, just like I did. Then the players need to have a path that goes from the top to the bottom side of the play area, and every player needs to have the same path. If you're playing solo, well, just go do it. If you're playing multiplayer, players will take turn adding a segment. So for example, I'm adding this one, then the next player says like we're going down. Next player says now we're going left, and this player says we're going left, and so on until you have a full path. You also need to set up, so these are the vegetables, plants that we'll be planting. You need to select some of them for specific scoring opportunities. You will need to draw one of these in that box there next to that icon, which is a reminder that at the end of the game you score points for each of that vegetable, in my case carrot, that is adjacent to the edge of the board. So I want to place my carrots as close to the board as possible. You choose one of the plants that will score you points if they're adjacent to the path. So flowers next to the path. I think it's going to be like a nice path that way. And then 2 plants here. You will score points for each plant of this kind adjacent to one of this kind. So for me, grapes next to those. I guess a little trees in a vase or balloons, either way. So each player will start with the same path, but then you set up your gnome and you're scoring specials individually, so to speak. And then we have a deck of cards because it's a flip and write, so we gotta flip something. These cards, you will use a different number of them depending on the number of players. Each simply has a combination of plants, which may be the same, and from time to time there may be a wild. Shuffle, 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 the required amount of cards based on the number of players. Then when you start playing, somebody will simply flip 2 of them, making them available. As chance would have it, they're the same, so we're going to do it differently because I want to show you how they can be different. There you go. Not that different again. It's fine. The point is that now we need to select only one of them will be available. If you're playing solo, well, you choose one. That's it. It's a lot easier and more relaxing the way you have more choices. If you're playing multiplayer up to 6 players, so players will alternate being the player who decides. For example, right now I decide we're all going to draw that one, and players will draw those 2 symbols there. And then the player sitting next to me will select, oh, I want this one to be the one. We draw those 2, and so on and so forth. So it may be the players alternate being that. If you have up to 6 players. With 7 or more, players vote. And that's why I think, I can just show the 2 cards on a big screen and then have my 120 students raise their hand and see at a glance, okay, it looks like 40, approximately 40, approximately 80. That's the card that you're all gonna draw. I can't wait to try that one. So, we're gonna select one of the cards. Suppose that for this round, this is the one that was selected, then the players must draw those 2 plants. You can draw them on the main board or you can draw them in the window here. The window, you can draw them in any order, but you can only have 1 copy of each. So if I place that one there, right there, then I can never place another plant of that type for the rest of the game in here. It's really a way for you to dump plants later in the game that would be useless when placed here. Early on, you want to probably place them in here to score things. To plant your plants, again, you either draw them in the window, if there isn't one of that type in there yet, or you plant them next to the path, or next to the garden gnome, or next to a previously planted plant. And so, for example, I decide to place that one there, and then I can place a carrot there, because remember, carrots, I like them to be next to the edge. Booyah. And then next round, like so, and I want to place that carrot there, because we decided that that's the case. That's exactly how it happens. Oh, flowers next to the path, so I'm going to do it here. And I'm gonna, well, suppose at some point we're gonna have another carrot there, and I'm gonna draw another carrot right there. Booyah. Why so? We continue like this until the deck is exhausted, and at that point we look at our displays and we count points. Each plant matching these requirements is worth 2v3 points. So each carrot next to the edge, 2v3 points. I got 6 points right there. Again, each flower next to the path, 2v3 points. Each grapes next to the little trees, 2v3 points. We also look at groups. Now you see the number there next to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is a number of plants in that group that you need to have for that to count as a group and to score that amount of points. So 3 carrots form a group and they score me 3v3 points. Now if I had more than 4, it doesn't matter. Still a group of carrots, it needs to be 3 or more, it scores me 3v3 points, although that is 4 right there. And this would be another group of carrots, and that would score me 3v3 points because it's another group of that. And so these always score 1 point. Again, they are a group of 1, so this would be pretty wasteful because there's still 1 point because it's one group of at least 1. The path blocks groups, so these would be 2 different groups of 1, for example. The gnome, the groups that are adjacent to the gnome score again. So for example, this would give me 3 points here and then 3 points when I'm looking at the gnome scoring. Each plant I drew in the window is 1v3 points. So I have the points from the group, the points from the gnome, the points from the window, the points from those special scoring. I add all the points together and I see what my score is. And the player with the highest score wins the game. Horticulture is extremely simple when it comes to the rules. For rules only, you could play with children, but I feel that they can get frustrated when they realize that they wanted to build a group of 5 flowers and now they only have room for 4 and that scores nothing. You need to have a certain threshold or higher for that to score. Or 2 groups or something else is merging so it only counts as 1. That is to say, although the rules are so simple, there is some strategy, there is some thinking that goes in there that definitely is going to be entertaining for casual players and can also entertain more heavy game-oriented players if they're looking for a light, quick diversion. I definitely like how there is a push your luck element because later in the game, well, should I start a group of carrots? Should I start a group of this or that? You see how thick the deck is and you realize if that's a good idea or a terrible idea, but you don't know for sure because you don't use all the cards, and so that is very nice. You can count cards and be absolutely sure that there's going to be a certain number of grapes in there, for example. So there is the push your luck element. There is a spatial puzzle. Yes, you got to prioritize. Yes, you cannot do anything and everything. At the same time, again, it's very simple, and I think there are only so many ways in which the strategy can go. The things that score toward the edges, put them toward the edges. The things that score on the path, you will want to put them next to the path. The garden, no, probably you want it to score some big groups, so you're probably going to start some large groups that will score more, 5 points for the flowers, 6 points for the grapes. You're probably going to end up starting some flowers and some grapes groups next to the garden gnome, and maybe you also use the match. Since they're going to be around there, you're going to use flowers and grapes for the bonus scoring, in which one next to the other. So I think that overall, there's gonna be a certain level of things that come back over and over again. So I'm not 100% sure about the long-term replay value, but as a simple light entertainment from time to time, I found it to be perfectly serviceable and enjoyable. I find myself trying to play it over and over again because while I felt it was one flower short from some amazing combo, was one carrot away from some other great scoring. And I realized that I placed things so that I cut myself off from a certain thing. So I thought, "Bah, next time I'm not going to do something that silly. I'm going to do so much better." And I did a little bit better because in doing something, I forgot to do something else. So the fact that you have so many scoring opportunities means that almost everything scores. Is almost like a flip and right point salad. But you need to do it very well and better than before. If you're playing solo, you need to do it better than the other people. We're also collecting points from a ton of sources. You need to collect a little bit more. So point salads, of course, are nothing bad per se, just the kind of game that is and the kind of game that this is indeed. Simple, light, cute, very relaxing theme, no conflict whatsoever. And I really don't see any kind of significant interaction. I don't know that people will really go and look at other people's displays to decide I'm going to select this card just so you can't have it. I think it's unlikely, and if they do, well, just cover it. I don't know that there's any rule about that. If there is one, ignore it and allow players to work privately if you want to reduce conflict. So when you're playing multiplayer, there's just going to be a random element there because other people are going to remove cards. With the solo play, you can plan a lot more and experiences, again, pretty nice and relaxing. This is my assessment of Horticulture, a light flip and write game, light but enjoyable, and one that you can really play, I think, with any number of players.